Good evening to our students and good evening to our teacher. Ma'am Jade, ba tayo? Tonight, Group 6 will discuss and give an understanding of what the rebirth of a freedom is. Aljon will discuss the historical background of the rebirth of a freedom. Lian and Francis will provide and present a literature that was popular or famous during the rebirth of a freedom and who wrote that pieces. As a part of their presentation, their group has prepared a game for all of you that will give you points. At the end of their discussion, Luz and Jairus will give an assessment.
Historical background apropos the rebirth of freedom. The Americans returned in 1945. Filipinos rejoiced and guerrillas who fled to the mountain joined the liberating American army. On July 4, 1946, the Philippines regained its freedom and the Filipino flag waved joyously alone. The chains were broken. The state of literature during this period. The early post-liberation period was marked by a kind of struggle of mind and spirit, posed by the sudden emancipation from the enemy and the wild desire to see print. Filipinos had by this time learned to express themselves more confidently, but post-war, problems beyond language and print like economic instability, the threat of new ideas and morality had to be grappled with side by side. There was a proliferation of newspapers like the Free Press Morning Sun of Sergio Osmeña Sr., Daily Mirror of Joaquin Roses, Evening News of Ramon Lopez's, and the Bulletin of Menzi. This only proved that there were more readers in English than in any other vernaculars like Tagalog, Ilocano, or Hiligaynon. Journalists had their day. They indulged in more militant attitude in their reporting, which bordered on the libelous. Gradually, as normality was restored, the tones and themes of the writings turned to the less pressing problems of economic survival. Some Filipino writers who had gone abroad and had written during the interims came back to publish their works. Not all the books published during the period reflected the war year. Some were compilation or second edition of what have been written before.
Some of the writers and their works of the periods are The Voice of the Veteran, a compilation of the best works of some ex-USAP men like Amante Bigornia, Roman de la Cruz, Ramon de Jesus, and J.F. Rodriguez. Twilight in Tokyo and Passion, and Death of the USAP by Leon Maria Guerrero. For Freedom and Democracy by S.P. Lopez, Betrayal in the Philippines by Hernando Abaya, and 7 Hills Away by N.V.M. Gonzalez.
Leon Maria Guerrero Lugardo, January 21, 1853 to April 13, 1935, was a Filipino writer, revolutionary leader, politician, the first licensed pharmacist in the Philippines, and one of the most eminent botanists in the country in his time. Leon Maria was one of the 14 children of Leon George Guerrero and Clara Lugardo. He was born on January 21, 1853 in Ermita, Manila. His brother Lorenzo became a painter and a teacher of Juan Luna. He painted the altar of the San Sebastian Church in Quiapo, Manila. Leon George was the uncle of poet-politician Fernando Maria Guerrero, who won a seat at the Philippine Assembly in 1907. He is the grandfather of the diplomat Leon Maria Guerrero III, his namesake, and preeminent writer Carmen Guerrero Napkil. Being a Shon, one of the most prominent families of Manila during the last year of Spanish colonial period, He was among the first students of the Ateneo de Manila University when it was founded in 1859 and known as the Ateneo Municipal de Manila. After completing his primary and secondary education, he enrolled at the University of Santo Tomas, where he graduated in 1875 with a degree Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy, specializing in botany and zoology. The following year, he was licensed to practice pharmacy. Guerrero was appointed head of the military pharmacy in Zamboanga City, Zamboanga del Sur, and at the Marine Hospital in Kawit, Cavite. Later, he would manage the popular Binondo Pharmacy, Manila. His scientific curiosity led him to study the therapeutic uses of Philippine plants, from which he extracted pharmacological ingredients.
Gonzales was born on September 8, 1915 in Romblon, Philippines. Gonzales, however, was raised in Mansalay, a southern town of the Philippine province of Oriental Mindoro. Gonzales was a son of a school supervisor and a teacher. As a teenager, he helped his father by delivering meat door to door across provincial villages and municipalities. Gonzales was also a musician. He played the violin and even made 4 guitars by hand. He earned his first peso by playing the violin during a Chinese funeral in Romblon. Gonzales attended Mindoro High School, now Jose J. Liedo Jr. Memorial National High School, from 1927 to 1930. Gonzales attended college at National University, Manila, but he was unable to finish his undergraduate degree. While in Manila, Gonzales wrote for the Philippine Graphic and later edited for the Evening News Magazine and Manila Chronicle. His first published essay appeared in the Philippine Graphic and his first poem in poetry in 1934. Gonzales made his mark in the Philippine writing community as a member of the Board of Advisors of Likhain, the University of the Philippines Creative Writing Center, founding editor of the Diliman Review, and as the first president of the Philippine Writers Association. Gonzales attended creative writing classes under Wallace Stegner and Catherine Ann Porter at Stanford University. In 1950, Gonzales returned to the Philippines and taught at the University of Santo Tomas, the Philippine Women's University, and the University of the Philippines, or UP. At UP, Gonzales was only one of 2 faculty members accepted to teach in the university without holding a degree. On the basis of his literary publications and distinctions, Gonzales later taught at the University of California, Santa Barbara, California State University, Hayward, the University of Washington, the University of California, Los Angeles, and the University of California, Berkeley.
Poetry in English during this period. For the first 20 years, many books were published, both in Filipino and in English. Among the writers during this time were Fred Ruiz Castro, Dominador E. Ilio, and C.B. Rigor. Some notable works of the period includes the following. 1. Heart of the Islands, 1947, a collection of poems by Manuel Biray. 2. Philippines Cross-Section 1950, a collection of prose and poetry by Maximo Ramos and Florentino Baleros. 3. Prose and Poems by Nick Joaquin in 1952. 4. Philippine Writing 1953 by T.D. Agkawili. 5. Philippine Harvest by Amador Daguio. 6. Horizons List, 1967, a collection of works by the professor of UE, mostly in English, short stories, essay, research papers, poem, and drama, by Artemio Pataxil and Silverio Baltazar. The themes of most poems dealt with the usual love of nature and of social political problems. Toribio Manio's poems showed deep emotional intensity. 7. Who Spoke of Courage in His Sleep by N.V.M. Gonzalez. 8. Speak Not, Speak Also by Conrado B. Pedroche. 9. Other poets were Toribio Manio and Edith El Tiempo. Jose Garcia's Bilas, Have Come, I'm Here, won acclaim both here and abroad. Novels and short stories in English. Longer and longer pieces were being written by writers of the period. Esteban Habellanas, Without Seeing the Dawn, tells of the grim experiences of war during the Japanese occupation. In 1946, the Barangay Writers Project, whose aim was to publish work in English by Filipinos, was established. In 1958, the Pen Center of the Philippines, poets, essayists, novelists was inaugurated. In the same year, Francisco Arcelena published his pen anthology of short stories. In 1961, Karima Poloton's novel The Hand of the Enemy won the Stonehill Award for the Filipino novel in English. In 1968, Luis B. Teodoro Jr.'s short story, The Adversary, won the Philippines Free Press Short Story Award. In 1969, his story, The Trail of Professor Riego, won second prize in the Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature, and in 1970, his short story, The Distant City, won the Graphic Short Story Award.
The new Filipino literature during this period. Philippine literature in Tagalog was revived during this period. Most themes in the writings dealt with the Japanese brutality of the poverty of life under the Japanese government and the brave guerrillas exploit. The people's love for listening to poetic Jews increased more than before, and people started to flock to places to hear poetic debates. Many books were published during this time, among which were Mga Piling Katha by Alejandro Abadilla, Ang Maikling Kwentong Tagalog by Teodoro Agoncillo, Ako Isang Tinig, collection of poems and stories by Genoveva Edrosa Matute, Mga Piling Sanaysay by Alejandro Abadilla, Maikling Katha ng 20 pangunahing author by A.J. Abadilla and Ponciano E.P. Pineda, Parnasang Tagalog, collection of selecting poems by Joseng Sisio and Balagtas, collected by A.J. Abadilla. Sining at Pamamaraan ng Pag-aaral ng Panitikan by Rufino Alejandro. He prepared this book for teaching and reading and appreciation of poems, dramas, short stories, and novels. Manlilikha, Mga Piling Tula by Rogelio G. Mangahas. Mga Piling Akda ng Kadipan, Kapisanang Aklat ng Diwa at Panitig by Efren Abueg. Makata, first cooperative efforts to publish the poems of 16 poets in Filipino. Pitong Dula by Dionisio Salazar. Manunulat, Mga Piling Akdang Pilipino by Efren Abueg. In this book, Abueg proved that it is possible to have a national integration of ethnic culture in our country. Mga Aklat Rizal. Many books about Rizal came out during this period. The law ordering the additional studies of life of Rizal helped a lot of activating.
Palanca Awards. Another inspiration for writers in Filipino was the launching of the Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature, headed by Carlos Palanca Sr. in 1950. Until now, the awards are still being given, although the man who founded it has passed away. The awards were given to writers of short stories, plays, and poetry. The first awardees in its first year, 1950 to 51, in the field of the short story were the following: First prize, Kwento ni Mabuti by Genoveva Edroza. Second prize, Mabangis na Kamay, Maamong Kamay by Pedro S. Dandan. Third prize, Planeta, Buwan at Mga Bituin by Elpidio P. Capulong. Before we start our game 2, let us hear an intermission number of our best singer in the group, Jairus Miranda. Let's give him a round of applause.
Mahal, pangako sa iyo, hindi magbabago. Ikaw lang ang iibigin ko, kahit ikaw ay lumayo at masaktan ako. Asahan na di maglalaho ang pag-ibig ko'y alay sa'yo lamang. Kung kaya't giliw dapat mong malaman. Minsan lang kita iibigin, minsan lang kita mamahalin. Ang pagmamahal sa'yo'y walang hangganan, dahil ang minsan ay magpakailanman.